Big change coming for the city of Toledo's annual 4th of July fireworks spectacular.
That includes adding some new rules that put age restrictions on who can attend the fun at Promenade Park. 13 Action News reporter Matt Mergen was at today's Toledo City Council meeting and has more details on that. Matt.
We and Sasha moments ago, City Council passed legislature, so those safety zones that they were talking about will be getting implemented at the Independence Day fireworks show. Now, I spoke to one council member before the meeting who said that this legislature could propel the council to pass more in the future for future events. Tuesday, Toledo City Council voting on a legislature that would implement special event safety zones for Independence Day fireworks at Promenade Park this year. The ordinance would apply for a 12-hour period from July 4th at 6 p.m. to July 5th, 6 a.m. The goal of the ordinance would be to help with crowd management and public safety operations, and it's being backed by other event organizers.
I'm supportive of anything that the city does to increase safety at events. So I believe that what the mayor's doing and what city council's doing with the safety zone simply enhances that. I do understand that that is something that's a concern in the city of Toledo, and that's what they're trying to address. So I'd be all for it.
Cheryl Hardy is the president of Hardy Communications and is the organizer of Party in the Park. While the legislation is just for the 4th of July fireworks, she says she would be for it spanning beyond just that. The ordinance includes youth supervision requirements, stating groups of 4 or more unaccompanied minors may be directed by law enforcement to leave the zone, followed by efforts to notify parents or legal guardians. Hardy believes council should build on this with more policies while inside the zones.
I do appreciate the clear backpack policy that a lot of the larger sports organizations put in place. I think they have a no backpack policy, which I think is okay until you become a family and you're bringing down diaper bags and other things like that. So do I think that there are things that we could do to make it even more conducive for families? I do.
Today I spoke with Councilwoman Erin Kramer off camera ahead of today's meeting. She clarified there's not a specific backpack policy in the legislature, but it's something they could consider in the future if council wants to continue this. She described this legislature as a pilot which could propel city council down the line to applying these safety zones at future events. Now, as for the size of those safety zones, it's still unclear as to what exactly that will look like come the 4th of July, but the mayor has the authority to decide those boundaries. Lee, Sasha?